Momentum is building to fix one of the most corrupt aspects of American healthcare.
The Biden administration is announcing the first batch of prescription drugs that will be subject to new price negotiations with Medicare.
The Inflation Reduction Act, which was signed last year, lets Medicare negotiate on prices for the first time ever.
Medicare's new negotiating ability will lower prices for 10 million American seniors with heart disease, blood cancer, and diabetes. It's expected to save taxpayers $102 billion in the next 10 years. There's just one problem. The pharmaceutical industry is going to war to stop it from happening.
The pharmaceutical industry is suing to dismantle the program,
calling the drug pricing provisions in the IRA unconstitutional, a sham, tantamount to extortion.
So there is a lot of money at stake here.
There are now almost 10 lawsuits from drug companies and lobbying groups aiming to block Medicare's new negotiating power. And the thing is, when you start reading through them, it becomes really clear that these arguments, they're pretty much seriously. No one expects them to win on the actual merits. But despite that, the pharmaceutical industry could actually stop negotiations from happening through a coordinated legal strategy that aims to get just one lawsuit in front of the Supreme Court. Let's take a look at how Democrats' efforts to rein in just blatant profiteering have sparked a full-on legal war with some of the most powerful corporations in America. First, you have to understand how the pharmaceutical industry created the most lucrative market in the world by denying Medicare the ability to negotiate in the first place. Let's rewind to 2003. This guy's president. Republicans control both the House and the Senate. Drug prices are rising, and Medicare, it doesn't really cover prescription drugs. There's a push to change that, but it's stalled in the House. Some Republicans say it's too expensive, and Democrats, they say the whole thing is designed as an industry handout. To break the gridlock, the industry starts throwing around a bunch of money. Billy Tauzin, a Republican congressman, inserts language that bars Medicare from negotiating prices. That's despite the fact that the bill will make Medicare the largest purchaser of drugs in the world. Meanwhile, the Bush administration really wants this to pass, so they come up with a foolproof strategy to convince holdouts. Just lie. The head of Medicare tells his staff, if you tell the truth about the cost, you're fired.
I consider that inappropriate and, in fact, unethical.
The Republican holdouts, they eventually buy in, and the plan becomes law.
Billy Tauzin of the House of Representatives did great work on this bill.
Tauzin, the congressman who banned Medicare from negotiating, he gets a job as a pharma lobbyist for a rumored $2 million a year. The guy who told Medicare to lie, he gets a similar gig.
In all, at least 15 congressional staffers, congressmen, and federal officials who worked on the prescription drug bill left to go to work for the pharmaceutical industry.
A few years later, here's what Tauzin said about how the law shaped America's drug market.
Your old friend John Dingell says that the 1,500 bills over the last 8 years dealing with pharmaceutical issues, the drug companies almost without exception have gotten what they wanted.
Yeah, I would think he's correct. They've done fairly well.
Fast forward to today, and Medicare keeps spending more and more money on prescription drugs.
People in the United States are paying more than all people in all other countries of the world put together. In many cases, double or more the amount people in other parts of the world. And it's because we don't negotiate price.
That's Peter Marmaduke. He heads up Access to Medicines program at Public Citizen. He's been pushing for negotiation for decades.
Most countries in the world give themselves the right to negotiate price at a high government level.
Last year, the Democrats finally gave Medicare that ability through the Inflation Reduction Act. The program allows Medicare to negotiate the prices of just 10 drugs. That might not sound like a lot, but these drugs make up around 20% of the program's cost. By the end of the decade, the law will expand to 60 drugs. These negotiations are similar to how Medicare determines what it will pay hospitals for surgeries and checkups. And the industry reacted, pretty strongly.
They've deployed, I believe, $400 million in lobbying expenses against the agreement so far.
The reality is, this isn't even unprecedented in America. Other parts of the government, they already negotiate prices.
It does it with a comparably small team and great success over at the VA. A recent survey of, I think it was 399 drugs, found that the VA had managed to negotiate prices 54% less on average than the prices that Medicare Part D was paying.
That's what this bill is doing. It's giving Medicare a fraction of the power that parts of the federal government and other countries already have. So the pharmaceutical industry knows some cracks are forming. They're about to lose control of their most important market. And since that market's existence is mostly due to corruption, it's tough to argue it in public. So they're trying to do it in the courts. This year, they started filing lawsuits. Here's what they say.
Quick corporate costume change.
Number 1, this is theft. Medicare is like 40% of the US drug market. It's super important. If we actually negotiated prices, we'd make less money because we'd be crazy not to sell to you. Negotiation, it's actually depriving us of our life, liberty, and property. 2, at the end of the negotiation, you're gonna make us sign a document that says stuff about prices being fair. Well, we don't think they're fair, and that's a violation of our free speech. 3, if we decide to ignore the law and sell at whatever price we want, the government is gonna tax those extra profits. Not cool. And nearly everyone is like, what are you talking about? After the first lawsuit was filed, one Michigan law professor said the odds of winning were less than the odds of Elizabeth Holmes winning MedTech Innovator of the Year. Another law professor, who doesn't even agree with the Democrats' legislation, said, despite oodles of colorful language, the complaint doesn't seem likely to win.
A number of the claims do seem to be an uphill battle, and that the pharmaceutical industry is really going to have a struggle making out a compelling legal argument. The reason this is an uphill battle is because, as the government points out in its responsive briefings, this is a voluntary program, right?
That's the thing. The pharma companies don't actually have to do any of this. It's hard to believe the government is stealing their property when the industry can take their medicine and go home. Or they can negotiate less than 1% of the drugs they sell to Medicare and gain access to the largest drug market in the world. But there's real concern that the lawsuits might work.
Precedent is very much on the government side, but the federal judiciary is a lot more conservative on economic issues than it used to be, and that goes double for the Supreme Court.
The thing is, these lawsuits aren't about presenting sound arguments. They're about gaming the legal system. First, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce tried a Hail Mary. It filed a lawsuit claiming negotiations are so harmful to drug companies that the program needed to be stopped immediately. This fall, it failed on procedural grounds. With the rest of the lawsuits, the industry is looking for what's called a circuit split. That's when 2 or more judges rule differently on the same issue, making it much more likely for the Supreme Court to hear the case and resolve the issue. So the industry is mounting a coordinated attack in different districts across the country. The lawsuits often share attorneys, and they've done a bunch of research and figured out what judges are sympathetic to the industry, and then filed lawsuits in those districts.
They're looking for judges that will be friendly to their case, and they're hoping to get it to the Supreme Court and sort of luck out.
It's hard to speculate how things will turn out, but what we've seen with the recent composition of this court is a greater willingness to maybe revisit historical precedents and to take the law in new directions.
So we don't know what's going to happen. This is a fight that's been going on for decades. The pharmaceutical industry wins most of the time, but the Democrats delivered a rare victory. And now, it might be in jeopardy.
It's important to understand that the industry has more than 2 lobbyists for every member of Congress, and so at any perceived threat, Pharma will deploy its forces and bombard the airwaves. And so it's important collectively that we fight back and turn that aggressiveness back against Pharma and say, actually, the American people think negotiating is very reasonable and fair pricing is essential.
Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. And as always, if you have ideas for future stories, go ahead and put them in the comments.